Okay, welcome back, guys. This is an extra YouTube extra that I'm doing, and this is for the Billboard. This is the GOATcast, and this is for Billboard's top 50 hip hop artists of all time. And it's caused some contention. A lot of people, we have lists like this where there's no criteria, there's no real basis that you can draw from. It's all subjective. How I can really get behind a Jay-Z song, but I'm not really feeling a Nas song. But millions feel that Nas song. I just don't. And I feel this Jay-Z song where another million might feel that. And it's all how the music just makes you feel. It's all about how the music moves you. So there's no right and wrong answer. This list you could swap so many different artists within this list that it's just something to do, and I don't think it's as egregious as some do. It pretty much captures the feelings of most as far as who are the mega stars and who have kind of had hip hop on their back for a long time and have kind of carried it from the early stages till now, and are still relevant, are still making a movement in it, and are still big parts of it. So before I do that, I do need to, as we're speaking about hip hop, I need to give my condolences to Dave, the member of De La Soul, Trugoy, Plug 2, one of the founding members, one of the great members of that group. I feel as Tribe Called Quest kind of overshadowed De La throughout the years, but when it comes to the native tongue movement, they were a huge part of my growing up, my childhood. Love their music still to this day, and it's kind of bittersweet that he unfortunately passed on before all of their music will be able to be heard on all the different platforms, and really to that Spider-Man movie, that end credit song by De La Soul kind of really captured a new audience. So a lot of people were looking for that music, and now they get a chance to really take a listen to it and really enjoy the sound of a great group. But unfortunately, we lost a good one, so here's a quick rest in peace, and this is a moment of silence for Dave, his family, and all those affected by this. So back to the Billboard list that I'm part of different hip hop groups, and it has caused a lot of talk. I'm going to only do the top 10, and I'm going to talk about a few omissions, but number 10 is probably the most talked about placement in all of this, basically because of a few artists that are lower. And many feel like this inclusion was due to them needing to include a certain type of rapper or certain, basically they needed to insert a woman into the top 10. They didn't want it all to be male driven. And I understand that, and I get that. There are a few artists that I might have replaced this artist with, but she was big in the movement, and really can't deny her having a spot this high up, and that is Nicki Minaj. And there's people that fight for Missy Elliott, some for Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill is hard for me to really back because she didn't have a long career. While she had a excellent debut album, some excellent work with the Fugees, it spanned just a few years. And she's popped up in different collabs and things like that, but for the most part, she just never was consistent when it came to making music. Same can't be said for Missy Elliott, who was a huge part of the late 90s, early 2000s. She kind of put the female rapper back into the spotlight, where Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, they kind of had their go, but really no one just had everybody's eyes on her. And Missy Elliott did that, and she did that by coming up with some unique stuff. She was very unique. She wasn't what you would normally see in a female rapper, and she brought some great music. She has plenty of hits. So it's kind of weird that she didn't get the flowers that Nicki got, but I can understand because Nicki's a little more recent. She's had some monster verses, pun intended, that rival some of the top 5 rappers on here's verses. So I feel like they may have done that for that. Missy, for as good as she is, she's not somebody that you're going to find super quotable. She's a little more simplistic in her schemes, but she makes great music. But Nicki Minaj is number 10. I mean, you can argue that, but she's been a very consistent artist herself, and when she drops, it is a big deal. Nowadays, maybe not as much, since she's kind of been eclipsed by Cardi B. From, Cardi B kind of took her shine, but before Cardi B's ascension, Nicki Minaj was the female rapper. So I could see her being dropped from the top 10, and Missy Elliott, if they had to have a female in the top 10, Missy Elliott placing her. But I'm not too mad at Nicki Minaj. Number 9 is Snoop Dogg, and I believe this. I think take this as a longevity kind of placement. He's been around for a long time. He's had a lot of hits. He's changed his style many times. He's not the same doggy style Snoop that he was. He's done reggae. He's done gospel. He's done auto-tune stuff. He's just done a lot of different things. He's had runs with No Limit with Master P and that group. He's branched out to the Neptunes and other, none of his albums you could say are bad. He's one of the most recognizable figures in hip hop as well. So really, Snoop ain't gonna wow you with his lyrics, but he's consistent and he's a big deal for hip hop. He is a mascot, not a mascot, but he's someone that everyone really knows from hip hop, and he represents hip hop very well. Number 8 is Drake, and I don't know. It's weird because Drake is like a Missy Elliott, where he's not. He raps, but a lot of his stuff is also kind of dance R&B music. He sings. He's done that ever since his first album, Take Care, and some of his biggest songs are him singing. So it's hard for me to put him at. And he's a good rap when he raps, especially his earlier days, his mixtape days. He's a beast. He can be a beast, but I just don't know if I put him at number 8 all time. I mean, he's a big deal. He's a seller, but is he more of a seller for his singing, or is he more a seller for his rap? And I don't know. I'm on the fence about Drake, but with Billboard and this being about, I guess, sales and just, them taking that into accountability, he's definitely could be included in the top 10. So I'll kind of give him this pass, but Drake, number 8, Number 7, Lil Wayne. I don't have any issues with Lil Wayne. I'm not a huge Lil Wayne fan. I don't think Lil Wayne is as great as some people do. He's made some cool albums since the Carter. People don't realize he had a career before that where he was Cash Money, where was it, The Block Is Hot, Lights Out, 500 Degrees. Those were early Wayne, and I don't hear many people talking about those. But since his rebirth with the Carter series and Young Money, him collabing with Drake and Nicki Minaj, and his resurgence as more of a lyrical MC. He's carved a solid career. So would he be in my top 10? He might could slip in there, but 7 is a stretch for me, but not too bad at it. Coming at 6 is Notorious B.I.G. Biggie. Some people probably would put him in the top 3, and most specifically this top 5, but he just falls out of that. The thing about Biggie is he only had a short run. He had Life After Death. No, he had Ready to Die, Life After Death, the Junior Mafia album, which he was sprinkled into that. So pretty much that's all he had. And remixes and collabs and all of that, features. But he came in with the storm, and he left on top. So you can't be mad at that. So we don't know what the future would have held, but for the span that he was alive and he was making music, he was one of the top artists, and he was a lyricist, and he could bring it. So no problems with him being number 6. As a matter of fact, I put him definitely in my top 5. So him being outside of the top 5 is a little weird, but I have no problems with that. Number 5, Eminem. A lot of people don't like Eminem, and he might be an acquired taste for some. I enjoy Eminem, especially early Eminem. He changed the game in the way that he was able to do things with words that not everybody could do, and he could do them while telling a story. He could do them while being silly. He could do them pretty much battling. He just had a way with words, and he had a way to really put together punchlines and strings of similes and syllables that just are not easy to do if you ever try to rap. So he definitely came in much like Biggie with the storm. He's been number 1 forever. Every time he drops an album, it's number 1 just about. Has tons of hits. He's probably one of the most recognizable rappers of all time, for good or for better or for worse. So I have no problem with him being number 5. Would he be in my top 5? Probably not. He's to me while he's still solid, he's had a pretty inconsistent few years after his initial run, after his layoff after Encore. He's been hit or miss. He still has the ability to string together some great raps, but it just hasn't resonated to good music or hits like he once did. But what do I know? But top 5, I can see it. My top 5, probably not. Before Tupac, this is another one that people will probably be mad at that he's not number one or number two or number three. But really, Pac gets, and this might get a few people on my bad side, but Pac did not have the greatest run. His first album, if you listen to it, I'm almost certain most people will probably not enjoy. It's very dated. Those people think of Tupac as Death Row, All Eyes on Me Tupac, and that's all they know him as. His first album, I think, was really not that good. The second album, Strictly for My, solid. It was a more balanced Pac. It still has a sound that doesn't sound so dated that it sounds like, MC Hammer could have rapped on some of those beats. I think Pac was a little more, it showed his well-roundedness more in Strictly for My. And Me Against the World, great album. But I feel like people judge him based on All Eyes on Me and just his whole Death Row and his Death Row persona. And while great, I don't think he was the most gifted. He had some very strong songs. He had some strong albums, some great poetic lyrics. But he also had a lot of, I would say, he wasn't the most diverse when it came to his wording. He wasn't the most diverse when it came to some of his thoughts. But he edged himself into this. He was a great performer. He was a great rapper. He may have put rap into the mainstream in a way that it was negative, but at the same time, it was hard to turn away. He put eyes on the genre. So number 4, don't mind it. And I love Tupac. I enjoy Tupac. I still listen to Tupac. Most of his albums, but there are other artists that have stood the test of time a little better than I feel like Pac, some of his music has, but that's just me. Number 3 is Nas, and some people will label me a Nas hater. But I've enjoyed Nas. I buy almost everything Nas does. I listen to everything Nas does. I enjoy most Nas, but I don't put him on the same pedestal as a lot of people. He can be a little bit hard to listen to. He's great, but he's like I can compare him to like a Tim Duncan. He's great, but sometimes watching his games, while he's exhibiting greatness, it's boring a little bit. It's doesn't have that wow factor. And sometimes Nas by himself, like the whole King's Disease trilogy and Magic and albums, don't have the oomph. Illmatic, great. Albeit, I think it starts great, and I don't think it's a perfect album like most people do. I think it has 2 duds on it. I'm not gonna name them because I don't want people to start coming at me but I feel like there's 2 songs on there that I really don't feel that, and I think that kind of dragged it down for it because it's so short. But I feel like Nas has been pretty consistent. He's had a lull like most artists, but he's picked himself up and he stayed relevant throughout every decade. Even though some decades he'll try something or he'll drop something and it's just not, it just doesn't mesh well with the sound of the times. But he'll find a way to reinvent himself and to re-enter into that time period. So Nas at number 3 is not at all a problem for me. I'd probably put him in my top 5. I don't know if I put him at 3, but he would definitely be in my top 5. Number 2, Kendrick Lamar. This is a big time cause for, I would say, some people to side-eye this, because Kendrick Lamar he's not brand new, but it's not like he's been here for multiple decades, and he's kind of sporadic with when he comes out. But I don't have a problem. He's definitely dropped albums that are thought-provoking. He's never dropped anything that's just mindless music. He always, you can tell he puts time and effort into everything he drops, and you can dissect a Kendrick Lamar album today, tomorrow, next year, next week, and probably find something new, and probably find something that he said that we didn't quite catch the first time, and that is deeper than what we think. With that said, would I put him as number 2 of all time? I wouldn't. I would definitely put a Biggie, a Nas, one of those would definitely be ahead of him. And he's got to definitely he's got to finish strong in his career, and I would think that he's got 1 or 2 left in him, and I think that I really want to see where he goes from here. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers was cool, but it's not an album that you can replay. It's not an album that you can. It's an album that's going to mentally drain you, and then I don't know if you're going to want to loop back to that. So does that make you a good rapper, that you can make such music that can just kind of, because it makes you think so much that it kind of depresses you, or it just puts you in a state where you don't want to listen to it anymore? Is that a good thing? I don't know, but I don't have I do have a problem with him at 2, but I don't have a problem with him in the top 10 at all. He's proven himself over and over these years. So number 1, of course, there's many that don't like it. I personally think there was no other MC that could be number 1, and that is Jay-Z. He's, to me, been one of the most consistent rappers. He's one of those rappers that has him and Nas can be in that conversation, but he's a guy that he's lived through, and he's been able to navigate through lots of trends and forces that came in, like they were going to take over, but every time he stayed neck and neck, level with them. There was the Bad Boy movement, there was DMX and the Rough Riders, there was Cash Money, there was 50 Cent, G Unit, Eminem, all these, Ja Rule, Murder Inc., all these different phases of hip hop, where it seemed like they would leave a guy like Jay-Z behind. He actually, he got on those waves and was able to stay neck and neck with those waves, and actually those waves at points benefited from him just like he benefited from them. So he's the ultimate longevity man in hip hop, and he's never he just, I think, won verse of the year from Hip Hop DX for God Did. Um, you know, that's just greatness. Him at this stage of his career, he's a billionaire, married to Beyonce, has nothing left to prove. He's got so many albums and number one albums and hits, and he's basically a business man, as he said in the song. So him still putting effort, and every time he drops an album or a song, it's a big deal. And most of the time, it's quality. Just like Nas, that's something to be said for just. And you think this has been happening for decades. That's why I can't really vibe with Nicki and Drake and Kendrick and those guys being on here, because Drake not so much, but the other two, there may be a fall off, because even Nicki right now she's not where she was, and I don't know if she can ever get back there. But Kendrick, there could be, because a lot of people weren't feeling this last time, so there could be a drop off. But Jay has stayed neck and neck with everyone, and in most cases has risen above as the years have gone by. So no problems with him at number one. You can argue with a few rappers being ahead of him, taking that number one spot, but anyone you argue, there's thousands of counter arguments for Jay-Z. So I think he counters anybody that you even try to mention as a top spot. So the few omissions that I can think of was Fat Joe and Ja Rule. And I do see those as egregious, seeing as how Ja Rule had a whole span of him being the marquee name as a rapper, and it hasn't been that long ago that he was. So I think that's a little egregious to completely leave Ja Rule out of the top 50 with some of the names that are made it. Fat Joe has been a consistent member. I mean, he's stayed relevant, I think, for a long time. Most people don't know Fat Joe's been in the game for a long time. A lot of people, saw his relevance rise when Big Pun, was surging, but he was around before that. He's been around a long time. So I feel like he's another one that he had a movement, Terror Squad movement. He had to lean back and the Big Pun fade years, and so I mean, I can understand that you just can't, there's certain rappers you just can't leave off, simply for the fact that they meant something to the culture, the fact that they were pioneers, that without them there may not have been a Jay-Z, Nas, or whoever else. So I get that, but I think those two are a little egregious in that they are not a part of this 50, but I can understand. So what do you guys think? Who would be your top 10 if you have a top 10? Do you think this top 10 is extremely egregious? Do you think it's fine? Would you just throw the whole list away and start from scratch? Of course, we didn't have Rakim or Big Daddy Kane in the top 10. They were in the top 20. I think Rakim was 13. Big Daddy Kane, I can't remember. He was, let me scroll through. He was, actually, I think he was number 20. With 50 Cent, J. Cole, Kanye ahead of him. That's another debate. But what do you guys think? Do you think Billboard did a solid job, or do you think Billboard Will you crucify Billboard for what they did? Let me know in the comment section. Like, subscribe. Like I said, this will be a YouTube exclusive drop. Check out the GOATcast. I'll leave the links for the GOATcast podcast in the description. And enjoy. Check out the NBA Talk, which was dropped earlier today, and just check out the other videos, the reviews, sports talk, everything. And we'll be back soon with another GOATcast Season 4. Thank you.